Hello and welcome back. We continue with the carriers. Now I moved on to tier 6 and I'm playing the IGN carrier Regio. Once again, it's only myself and enemy carrier that are real players and the rest are bots. So obviously again that will greatly affect how it looks. Now with the increased tier, you will have a few more planes in the air at one time, and you will be able to strike with more planes as well. So you can be a bit more of a annoyance for enemy ships, and you also increase the chance of getting fires and floods and then getting a second one in a later attack run. You also have access to the fighter consumable, which means that when you see enemy planes, you can launch them to try and shoot some of them down. That is, of course, a major help, because at least you feel like you can do something against the enemy carrier. In tier 4, the only thing you could really do was try to strike them, and as we saw in the previous game, if you've seen that video, that is quite difficult. Especially at tier 4. So basically the carriers are not playing the same game, you could say. So small improvement here at least. It is fairly easy though to avoid. You see the area on the minimap where the fighters will strike. And as long as you don't get too close to the enemy planes, there's no risk for you either. And since you have no way of controlling them more than the general position, it is once again in my opinion, a fairly useless consumable, and it doesn't really bring any particular joy to the gameplay, make it more interesting. You just pop it, and if the enemy CV doesn't really know what they're doing, they will get some planes shot down. It is really a brain dead level that is needed to do anything. Now, seeing as you have more attack rounds per squadron, you have an easier time to harass ships, and we will see that here when we have DD. Because I will be able to make several attacks, and even though the damage of each run is not that impressive, at this tier when the DDs don't have too much HP, it does hurt them, and there's absolutely nothing he can do. because I'm using the rocket bombers, as long as I aim properly, I will hit and I will do damage. If I'm lucky, I will also take out his engine or set fire or something like that. And you saw there just how far I managed to bring his HP down. Basically the only thing he can do is pop his smoke if he has it available. So for enemy ships, this carrier rework is definitely not enjoyable. Of course, as you can see here, when I do a test of what AA can do, if you have a ship with good AA, your planes will just disappear from the sky, as you see here. And believe it or not, I did do that on purpose, and I did to try it. So AA can definitely hurt you, but as we all know, over the course of the game, AA modules will be damaged and destroyed. You will run out of defensive AA, you might run out of fighter planes. But for a carrier, you will be able to just push out more and more planes, because you have infinite planes. To make things even worse, you're not even really punished when you fly your planes badly and get destroyed by AA. Because you have 3 types of plane. If you lose all of one type in an attack run, you can send out the next type, and even if you play that badly as well, you have a 3rd type. And by the time that is over, you will for sure have reloaded the first one again. So no matter how badly you play it, you will always be able to send out more planes when you get your squadron shut down, or if you manage to do all your attack strikes. And that is another aspect of this carrier rework that I think will be really frustrating. Because the longer the game goes, the more powerful the carrier becomes. And that is something that will need balancing. One thing could be to increase the reload time further, or at least increase it for when planes are shot down. Because while it is true that you cannot send out the same type over and over again, you can still send out planes and you can still do damage. So like I said, there is no punishment for playing badly. The only punishment is that you will not do too much damage, but you will continue to force enemy ships to play around you, constantly try to shoot down your planes and dodge your attacks, which will put them in danger for other ships. Another thing is these large caliber flak bursts that you see when you're close or within the AA range. From my understanding, I might be wrong, but at least from what I've read and heard, you are basically supposed to be able to fly around and minimize the damage you receive from the flak guns. The problem I find is that eventually you will have to go towards a ship, and very often you will see just a wall of flak explosions, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to avoid it. And very often you will lose a big portion of the planes, or they will be so heavily damaged that the normal AA will take out most of them anyway. So while you're still flying around, I think it is to some extent possible to avoid them, but once you start moving towards the ship, if it has decent AA, you will get hit hard. Now I have tried to spec my carriers to maximize the plane HP, but even so you see throughout this game how easy it is to do damage and shoot down my planes. Now obviously that's a good thing. If you have seen earlier versions of the carriers, you could basically not shoot down any planes, and that's obviously worse. But I think that we come back to the point I made in the last video that I don't believe that having carriers in the game can ever be balanced. And the way they are doing this, I just don't think it's the right way forward. And to be completely honest, I'm probably gonna avoid randoms for a while. Let other players work out the biggest bugs, or not bugs, but kinks in the system. And hopefully it will be improved later, but the way it looks right now, I think it's going to be worse than the current state. Yes, the carriers as they are now have, if they're played well, a ridiculous alpha strike. But to be fair, not many players can play them well enough to do that. So it is quite rarely a factor. With the new version of the carriers, you will, as long as you stay alive, be able to be more and more effective as the game goes on. Tier 6 is a small improvement from 4 though. It is slightly more enjoyable, but even so, when I play it, I just find myself wondering why. What's the point of this class? What's the point of this type of gameplay? And I can't imagine that is what wargaming is going for. Obviously I can only speak for myself, and there might be others that think this will be really good. The playstyle will be what it needs to be, and so on. But the way I see it, it will not result in anything particularly good. As for this game, I managed to get the Confederate Award, but not too much damage. The game is fairly close to ending. The enemy team only has 2 ships left, one of them being the enemy carrier. And like I said in the other video, it seems like one bot team is fairly okay, another bot team is really bad, and that's what we see here as well. Now once again try to strike the enemy CV, and I get the first strike off. I try to create some distance to avoid the fighters, but as I turn back, they are instantly on my tail, and they just completely shred me. I do actually manage to get a second strike off, but that's only because I have so many planes in the air. So carrier-to-carrier combat is, at least for tier 4 and 6, completely pointless. The game ends here, so I will get another win and 93k damage. So a decent game, even though I'm still very new to this and learning.